Welcome to Evolve, Reinventing Leadership, Building Freedom Cultures, with thought leader and award-winning author Yvette Bethel. This podcast provides you with insights and ideas you can use to reinvent your culture through trust and the principles of interconnectivity, flow, and balance. At a time when the world is rewriting the rules of work, traditional leadership practices are not enough. It's time to perceive persistent challenges through a new lens. It's time to evolve. Well, hello everyone, and welcome once again. This is your host, Yvette Bethel, and the topic for this episode of Evolve is recruitment and retention systems. We have with us CEO at Core Matters, Mr. Ryan Englin. I hope I'm saying your last name properly.
Good enough, yes.
Okay. Ryan is a passionate advocate for small to medium-sized businesses in blue-collar industries, and he's driven by a childhood spent witnessing his father's tireless work as an owner. With a decade of experience in corporate America and now as CEO at Core Matters, Ryan empowers business leaders to build amazingly productive companies by focusing on hiring and retaining the right people. Ryan shares his unique perspective on process development and recruitment as a marketing activity, offering actionable tips and strategies to revolutionize any business. So, hello, Ryan, and welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like to get started. I love talking about systems and recruitment and retention. They make up an integrated system that deeply impacts any organization. So, how did you become interested in recruitment and retention?
When I went to college, because even though my dad was an entrepreneur, and I'm sure he would have loved it if I went into the family business, I decided not to. So I went to college, got a degree, and when I was in college, I really got excited about the people side of business.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my major was in human resources, particularly training and development. And then I got out of college, couldn't get a job anywhere near training and development human resources. So I went into the mortgage business. I went into banking
Mm-hmm.
and I spent over a decade there. And my time at corporate, I got to see why large organizations are able to become so large and scale because they have incredible systems. We might not always like the systems, but they are really good systems. And so when I left corporate and I started my own company, I wanted to serve people like my dad, people that were in the trades. And so I started a marketing company because in the beginning I had this belief that part of my dad's challenge with business had nothing to do with people. I thought it had to do with customers and revenue and profitability.
Mm-hmm.
So I started a marketing company to help people like my dad with that. A couple of years in, and everybody told me I don't have problem with lead gen. I don't have a problem with customers and getting them back. My problem is I have empty trucks sitting in the yard. I don't have enough technicians. I don't have enough customer service people. I don't have enough of that. And so I took my decade in corporate, took my education, and I said, you know what? Recruiting is a marketing activity. Let's go get you some good people. So I
Mm-hmm.
shifted the marketing company away from lead gen and moved it over into recruiting. And we started developing marketing funnels that were incredibly successful because no one else was doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look back 10 years now and I think, okay, it was a moment of brilliance. At the time, it felt like a moment of desperation. Like I just need to save these clients, anything I can do. Um,
Desperation can lead to brilliance, though.
but now I'm glad I did it and I wouldn't be doing anything else.
I'm gonna ask you about the funnels because I'm really intrigued by that, but I want to ask you first, what kinds of changes have you witnessed over the years? Because it seems like you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah. I think that pandemic was probably the most impactful change when it
Mm-hmm.
came to people in general, and especially the hourly employee. What we found was during that time, it was almost like this veil came down where, for whatever reason, employees felt that they didn't have options. And so there was this inner workings of a career and of personal income that they didn't really understand. And then when the pandemic hit and we divided people into essential and non essential, and we
Yeah.
laid off a whole bunch of people, all of a sudden they say, well, wait a minute, maybe I need to take a little bit more control of this.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I can take control of this. And there are opportunities now with the digital world that we live in, with the fact that nobody could leave their home and needed things delivered. And there was an opportunity for people to take their personal income, to take control of it. And now all of a sudden, the dynamic between the employee and the employer has changed.
That's right.
That veil has been torn down. They're like, I understand the inner workings of making money now. I don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur to do it. And we saw this boom in the gig economy. And what it did was it basically gave employees, it empowered them to say, hey, I have control over this. You
Mm-hmm.
need me just as much as I need you.
That's right.
And it hadn't really worked that way in the last 50 years before that.
I find that some organizations treat recruitment as a transactional process. And it's people in, people out for, whatever reasons. But you're talking about it from a marketing perspective. And we can
Yeah,
let's focus on the people in part. I don't know if you use marketing for the retention, but
we do.
that would be interesting to talk about when we get there.
Yeah.
But from a marketing, you mentioned funnels, and I said I was intrigued. Tell us how you use the funneling system to manage that.
Well, our funnels are not nearly as complex as some of these marketing funnels that you see out there because when it comes to people who are actively looking for work or even passively looking for work, maybe they have a job and they're just open to new ideas, new opportunities. Uh, they don't have to be as incredibly complex. But what they have to do is they have to appeal to them. There has to be this what's in it for me? Like, why should I jump ship? Why should I leave where I'm at and go somewhere else? And what we find is that when people are looking for work passively, right, they're not on Indeed, they're not testing their resume or learning how to respond to interview questions. They're just
Mm-hmm.
passively looking for work. They're going up to their friends and they're saying, Yvette, what do you know? Do you know anybody? Like, how's things working for you? Right? We're having
Mm-hmm.
conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we don't equip our people on how to respond to those conversations. If we are not available as an employer for where those people are at. So maybe they're on Facebook, maybe they're on TikTok, maybe they're uh, reading the news. If they can't find information about us wherever they spend their time, we aren't getting in front of the right people. We're definitely not in front of them at the right time because we're not there when they're looking. So we look at things like how do you use social media as part of your recruiting strategy? And not from a we're hiring, we're hiring, we're hiring, because that's people have beat that drum for way too long. That's not what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, are they on social? I use the example of sponsoring a little league team. Right when I was growing up, my little league team jerseys were always sponsored by the local car dealership. And the belief was that if the car dealership puts their logo on the back of the kid's jersey, every time that kid's up to play, every time mom washes that jersey, every time anyone sees it, it's like over and over and over again that auto dealers, right? Like that's how it was. Well, I look at it this way now. What if you sponsored a little league team as an employer just because you wanted to be in front of the right people and you found out some of your top employees have kids who play little league?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if some of your best people have kids that play Little League, there's probably other parents who have kids that play Little League that would be make amazing employees. So why don't you look at some more getting involved in the community and investing that way? So those are some of the ways we create our funnels. Like I said, we don't do it overly complex with using click funnels or any of these other fancy technologies. It's more of what I would say like an old school funnel.
You
People in at
know,
the top, qualified down, and eventually
yeah.
we get new employees.
Yeah, what you're describing sounds like in larger organizations, they call it strategic sourcing.
Mm.
So from your perspective, like how do you organize that? Because it sounds like you made a very clear choice that, this is the team that most of my people's kids they're a part of. Let's advertise there. So what kinds of strategic sourcing ideas can you share with our audience that would be helpful to them?
Well, a lot of the people that we work with, and in fact, a lot of people in the space, They have websites that do one thing really well, demand
Mm-hmm.
gen. That's what their website's built for. And we actually have seen that you can change the messaging of your website to recruit first, and you'll still generate demand for your product or services. You see, I use these examples like a radio ad. So think of the radio ad as a website, all the same type of messaging. Usually it's we're the best, we're awesome, you should buy from us, you'll be happy. By the way, all of our technicians are on call 24/7. They'll
Mm-hmm.
do whatever it takes to get it right. They'll spend however much time they need to. Like if I'm a homeowner or a consumer, I'm like, heck yeah, when I have an emergency, I want a tech to show up. But if you're a technician looking for a job, all you see is the customer is always right. That never works out. I have to leave my family in the middle of the night if there's an emergency. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be able to have a peaceful weekend ever again. Like all these promises that we made to the consumer, your potential employee sees that and says, I don't want to come be treated like that. Now, you might be the best employer in the world, but the message they receive is one that says, you're never going to have a peaceful evening alone again because you're on call.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that we took that website and we changed it. Or imagine we take that radio ad and we change it and we say, you know what? We only hire the best people. And I don't just mean the best technician who's going to solve your problem, but a technician who cares, a technician who values what you value, because they understand that when your air conditioning isn't working in the summer, it's not about your comfort. It's about your family. It's about the experience that you have when that AC isn't working or is working. And we hire techs that are background checked, they're fully trained, they take care of themselves, they're clean cut, they're professional. They answer your questions in a language that you can understand.
Mm-hmm.
That is the type of technician that we hire. That's the type of company that we're building. That's the type of team that you can expect to work with when you do business with us. Imagine that was your ad. Now technicians are being like, I want to be a part of that team. I
Mm-hmm.
want to work with those people. And the consumer is saying, that's the kind of person I want to show up in my home, take care of my AC. Right? We just flipped it around.
Yeah, you're making me think about, how should an organization determine the best? Because sometimes they base it on a resume, the education part of the resume. They may base it on the fact that they worked at this company that's really great. Like, how do they determine that? Because a lot of times the resume looks really good. Sometimes people are very good at interviews. So
Yeah.
how do you get to the best?
Well, I'll do my best not to soapbox too much on these, but uh, I remind people there's three types of resumes in this world.
Hmm.
There's the resume written by a professional resume writer.
Hmm.
There's the resume written by someone who has no idea how to write a resume. And there's a third one that's pretty new to the scene, which is the resume written by AI.
Yes, that's right.
Most job seekers do not know how to write a good resume. They
Hmm.
do enough. They get the interview and they're like, well, that must have worked. I'll do that again. They have no idea what we're really looking for. I mean, what's the average? A recruiter can determine within 6 seconds of looking at a resume whether or not you're moving forward.
That's true.
So, from a job seeker's perspective, like, why should I bother? The amount of effort that would take to get 6 seconds reviewed and to get through, I might as well just apply 400 times and one of them's bound to call me.
Hmm.
So uh, in the work that we do, and I'm not saying always, but the majority of the time, we find that resumes are not a great indicator of whether or not someone's the right person. Because what we're looking for and what we teach our clients to look for is not the best technician or the best person at word processing or Excel or the best programmer. What we're looking for is a set of behaviors, a set of traits that don't exist on the resume.
That's right.
Because I can teach someone how to use my software. I can't teach them how to be a great team player.
So what that implies then is that the organization needs to define what those traits should be before they start interviewing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the best ways to do that is to take your rock stars, those people you wish you could clone and go find more of, and sit down and say, what makes them someone that I really like having on the team?
Sometimes organizations look for all rock stars, and then that creates a dynamic that's difficult to manage. What would you say a right mix would be in terms of integrating rock stars into the team?
Well, what we find is there's usually two different types of people. So the way we define rock stars are they're the rocks foundations of your team. They're the ones
Mm,
that are reliable, they're consistent, they're top 10% of what they do, but they're not looking to move up. They don't want to fight for the
mm,
next leadership position. They are
mm.
foundational. And we all have them. In fact, we promote our rock stars because we love them so much. We promote them. And then they actually have a term for this called the Peter principle. We take our rock stars who don't want the promotion because they know better,
Right,
and then we promote them and then they fail.
right.
On the other side, though, are superstars. And it's the superstars that I think you were referring to. Because if you have a team full of superstars, you're in trouble because
Hmm.
there is no one that wants to do the work. Everybody just wants the next big promotion. And we need the occasional superstar because otherwise we can't grow our company. We can't launch new teams. We can't launch new markets if we don't have superstars because there's no one to take that on. But what we find is that you need one superstar for probably every 10 to 20 rock stars, depending on your organization. So not a lot of them. But
So,
that's how
the, oh, go ahead.
no, that's it.
I was just gonna say, so the rock stars are the rocks or you know, the rock of the team. Like
They're the foundation. Yeah.
they're the foundation, they ground the team, and the superstars are the ones that, depend on the rock stars
Oh,
because they're
yeah.
necessary, but they depend on them to take the team to the next level.
Yeah.
So yeah, oh, okay. Because when I saw that, you were saying rock stars, I was thinking you meant super. So I'm glad you
No,
cleared that up.
most people do. So that's why I clarified.
All right. A lot of times when an organization hasn't planned, they haven't done their succession or development, process properly, they are in a hurry to
Mm.
to get somebody in the seat. What do you suggest or what do you advise to someone that's in a hurry and they have this time to fill metric that they're trying to meet or exceed? What do you suggest to them? What's your advice in a situation like that?
Slow down.
Mhm.
It's interesting to me. We always have the time to do it over, but we never have the time to do it right.
Mm,
And I see that happen, doesn't matter, small, large, enterprise organizations. It seems that we're in this space of, you know what, if it doesn't work out, we'll just do it again. If it doesn't work out, we'll just do it again. And no one ever has the foresight to say, wait a minute, how about we
mm,
just do it right this time?
yeah.
Slow down, do it right. And I think that some people argue that do it right is very subjective. But I think if you're hiring the people that match your team, that fit culturally, that have the skill set you need to succeed, I would call that a right hire.
Mm,
The problem is we're so focused because of sometimes it's silos, especially in larger organizations. Like we've got a hiring manager over here, we've got HR over here. They're doing their best to communicate, and the only thing they know how to talk about is skill set.
that's right.
And so what we end up doing is HR sends a whole bunch of people over the hiring manager and says, these all match your skills. And the hiring manager's like, these people suck. Don't want any of them. And HR is like, I don't know what to do. But what they
Yeah,
don't understand is that the hiring manager is looking for a set of behaviors.
that's
They're
right.
looking for a way they carry themselves, for a way they communicate, because that's what aligns to their team. But they themselves struggle to communicate that to HR, and
Hmm.
then HR gets stuck.
So, what do they do?
Well, I like to say you put them in a padded room together, you let them duke it out, and you let them just say, hey, you're not leaving this room until you both agree on what's the right person.
Mm, hmm.
And that's one of the things we do. So we usually work with smaller organizations, sub 500 employees. We find that we can make things happen a lot quicker at that size.
Yeah,
And what we'll do is we'll take the recruiting team and we'll take the hiring team and we're going to put them in a room together and say, we're going to duke this out and we're going to put together the profile of the ideal employee.
right. That's right.
And we aren't doing anything until that's done. But what inevitably happens? Oh, we don't have time for that. We need to hire, got to fill these positions. I just had 3 people quit. We just took on this new work we don't have enough people for. No. Trust me. Take the extra 60, 72 hours to figure this out. It'll be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But they often don't because they feel like they're just too much of a hurry.
So I'm going to take a break here,
Yeah.
and I want to just say to our audience, this is your host, Yvette Bethel, and when we come back, we will explore retention strategies.
Organizational Soul is a mission-driven organization and network where we specialize in trust in academia, families, and organizations. We are building a community of leaders who are interested in trust and culture. If you are interested in our updates, you can sign up for our newsletter at orgsoul.com. As a thank you for joining our community, you can access our free resources that are designed to help you build your brand as a trusted leader as you contribute to safe space. Sign up now at orgsoul.com.
Welcome back to Evolve. Our guest today is CEO at Core Matters, Ryan Englin. Welcome back, Ryan. And I'd like to ask you a question now. The questions now are going to be about retention.
Mm-hmm.
And from your perspective, what is the key to retention nowadays? Why are people staying and why are they leaving?
Well, I think contrary to what the news tells you, right? People are staying now because they're scared because of the inflation, because of all these other things. But uh, I've heard this before, and I'm sure most of your listeners have heard this too. People don't leave jobs; they leave bosses. They leave people. And so any conversation about retention has to start with this idea that people don't leave the work, they leave the people. And if we truly believe that, then we need to develop systems, processes, behaviors that align with keeping people more than it is just keeping workers. Often we find that when someone's not performing well, so let's say that the employer chooses to terminate someone because of lack of performance. We often find that the performance issue has nothing to do with the actual person, but more to do with what they are going through in their personal life. As much as employers wish that people could just leave their personal lives at the door,
Right.
we are human beings and we suck at compartmentalizing.
That's right.
We're not
That's
good
right.
at it.
That's
And
right.
so if I've got something personal going on at home, you can pretty much be guaranteed that it's going to reflect in my performance.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a coworker or a toxic manager that is stressing me out or burning me out, you can pretty much be guaranteed that it will affect my performance. More so than me not having the right skills.
Right. That's right.
Especially if I have a job there already. Because you hired me because you thought I would make a good team member. I probably was at one time, but you choose to terminate or dismiss now because my performance is down. And when we have good leaders that say, wait a minute, when I hired this person, I got the whole thing, the good, the bad, the ugly, I got it all. Let me sit down and spend some time and figure out what's going on with them. Why now? Why are things different?
Yeah.
And even when we hire new people that don't have the skills and experience, I see the same thing happen. When you have a leader that sits down with a new person and says, do you want it? Because if you want it, I will teach you how to get it. That relationship works really well and keep those people. But when you show up and you say, hey, new guy, get to work. And the new guy is like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing because you didn't bother telling me. You didn't talk to me. And then 3 days in, someone gets hurt or the product doesn't get done or a customer is upset because the service wasn't right. Now, all of a sudden, we blame the employee. But nobody should be expected to perform after 3 days. And when we get into this cycle of treating people like this and behaving that way, word gets out. Other people on your team see it. And it's just a snowball from that point. Retention gets really hard at that point.
It's from what you're saying, it sounds like retention begins at the point of orientation and onboarding, which most people don't think about, but it sounds like that's what.
I tell people retention begins at application.
Ah,
I think about it like this. So I've been married for almost 20 years,
mm-hmm.
and I still remember my first date,
Really?
right? So does my wife. And that first date influenced the rest of our relationship. And for most people, it does. So we'd be crazy to think that the first interaction they have with us when they apply doesn't influence their ability to stick around long term. Did they apply and get a phone call within 15 minutes? Says, hey, we saw your resume. We'd love to talk to you more. This sounds good. Or did it sit in your inbox for 2 weeks before you called them back and you said, hey, you'll have to apply for a different job because we've already filled this one? Like, that's going to influence the relationship long term.
But I hear of a lot of instances where on the recruitment side, they had like they did a really great marketing job. So the person bought into the company, they came in, and when they got in, it it felt like a bait and switch.
Oh, you have to be able to walk the walk. Like, you can't. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. But you know what? But to your point, you just said it felt like a bait and switch. Well, that influenced that person's retention.
That's right.
So it
Well,
goes all
yeah,
the way back to application. But no, you have to be able to walk the walk. You can't just give them a bunch of lip service and be like, oh my gosh, you're the best. You're amazing. I'm so excited to have you. I tell people this: if you were to book a rock star, remember, rock stars, the rocks, their foundation, a rock star for your kid's birthday, and the rock star showed up, and you're like, who are you? I I don't recognize you. Are you supposed to be here? And they're like, what is this? You got to treat them like a rock star, and we often don't do that.
so I'll give you I guess a situation that I'd like for you to kind of break down for our listening audience. You're approached by a client that has high turnover and for numerous reasons. And I'd like for you to share with us what are some of the steps you take for first diagnosing the situation and then resolving it because you can't resolve it
First
without
question I always
understanding.
ask is, can you send me your exit interviews?
Mhm.
And inevitably, you know what the answer is to that. We
We
don't do
don't
exit
do anything.
interviews. Okay.
I live in the
We
Bahamas and I know that.
I my favorite is we know why people left.
Yeah, yeah.
We know. We don't need to ask them. We know. No,
Mhm.
you don't. No, you don't. So that's the first thing I ask is that. And then the second thing I say is, can you send me the data of your turnover for the last 12 months? Because I want to see if I see any patterns. Is there a certain team or a manager that's consistent? Is it a certain position that's consistent? Is
Mhm.
there a period of time when most people decide to leave? And so we start looking at the data. The data tells us a story. And for any gaps, then we start our investigation to find out, what are the gaps in that story so that we can piece it all together and say, here's what's really going on.
I think one of the things that when people think about retention and recruitment, they don't typically think about unlearning. And in today's environment, what do recruiters or managers need to unlearn and why?
Yeah. I find that it's generational. I'm just going to bucket it there. It's generational.
Hmm.
Uh, we have a lot of boomers that are on their way out and they're all ready to retire. And I find that they have the least tolerance for unlearning because they're at the end of their career. They got
That's right.
35, 40 years of doing it the same way. It's really hard to unlearn at that point. Now, I'm not saying that they won't learn new things, but sometimes we have to create some systems or processes that protect our team from the things they don't want to unlearn.
That's right.
Uh, when you get into the younger generations, I find that especially people that were well into their career before the pandemic, and that pandemic was just such a critical space in the employee-employer relationship. Uh, their brain's been scrambled a little bit, and they're like, "Wait a minute, maybe I need to change the way I think about some things." I mean, the proliferation of AI is
That's right.
forcing us to rethink some things. And for people that can see just a little bit into their future and saying, wait a minute, if I want to be relevant in 5 years, maybe I better do something different. And so I think that the idea behind unlearning, I think anybody can unlearn stuff. I think that the motivation needs to be there. And if they don't understand why they need to unlearn something, that can be a real challenge.
So a lot of times people, there's so many things that people do and when they're thinking about retention. Um, what do you find is most I guess effective in helping people to say, because sometimes they pay them more than because they're contributing more, or they reward them. But what works? What really
Yeah.
works?
So I believe that their income is a means to an end. I think that people want more money, not because they want more money, but because they want to buy something that costs more money.
Mhm.
And so find out what those people are motivated by. We have a process that we take people through in really understanding what people are giving up. So if you think about it in the most basic terms, when someone leaves their home
Mhm.
and they commute to your office or your shop, they are leaving something behind. They're leaving behind their family, they're leaving behind their friends, and they're leaving behind the things they do for fun.
Mhm.
And when they give that up and come to your office, you're motivating them to do that by offering them a wage. Right? You're saying, hey, I understand there's value to that. So in exchange, I'm going to give you $24 an hour to leave that behind
Mhm.
and come do this so that you can pay your bills and do all those other things. Well, what happens is $24 an hour or whatever the wage is not nearly enough to cover those things. Right? And so what people have realized is that if I'm going to give up my friends, my family, and the things I do for fun, my employer should find a way to replicate some of that. Make me enjoy the people I go to work with. Give me opportunities to create friendships at work. And I'm not saying it needs to be all play. You don't need to have PlayStations and, foosball tables. That's not what I'm saying. But at least let them enjoy the time they get to spend there. Find ways to make it enjoyable. And so when you can create some of this sense of belonging, like a family, when you can create opportunities for them to have people that they confide in, the friends, and when you can create opportunities for them to enjoy the work that they do, the fun, now all of a sudden people are like, you can't put a price tag on that. And you're replicating what I left my home for here. So I actually look forward to going to work. And I think when you can do that, that's when you can really impact retention.
Yeah, so it sounds like an underlying uh, engagement strategy uh, works very well for retention. Well, it's more than that though, because you're saying fun, have fun, engage them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of opportunities, and how everybody does it is different. Every organization is going to be different. Every organization is going to attract the right kind of people. But it can be done. We've seen it done many, many times.
How do you pull it off in a command and control culture? Are they easy to work with from that perspective?
Well, companies that have command and control cultures and are excited about that don't typically call me. We teach a little bit of the softer side. I'm not saying that it's a democracy, but you have to care about your employees, right? You have to care about them. You have to want them to care about you, because that's what works. But I think those things could happen in a command and control culture. You just need to create space for it. You need to create margin for it.
Hmm.
So while you might say, hey, you're going to be here for 9 hours with an hour for lunch, and it's by the book, and it's very strict, and it's very this and very that, there's probably opportunities to create some of that. And you don't have to create a lot, because the people that thrive in a command and control culture want to be in a command and control culture.
You got that right.
So the people that don't thrive, like if you have turnover problems, it's not the culture that's the issue. It's the people that you're bringing in, because there's somebody for everybody out there.
Hmm. That's true. So, as a final question, when it comes to recruitment and retention, what is one thing you would like our audience to remember about this conversation?
The employees need to feel like they belong
Mm,
at work. They need to feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves. And how you create that, it's different for every company. But you need to find out what makes you unique and be intentional about creating that sense of belonging. Because if you do, recruiting gets easy, retention gets easy, people start telling their friends, they start coming to work there. Things get a lot easier when you can create that sense of belonging.
What if a company created a culture that isn't working for it? Like, how do they start to attract people who may not, fit in the current culture, but, they want to work toward that change?
That's it's a very lengthy process to do that because
Mm,
you have the people who are with the old culture, you're shifting to the new culture. You can't have mass exodus. You can't bring all newbies in. Like you have to balance it. And usually when we have that happening where we're dramatically changing the culture, uh, there's a very strategic process that we go through, and there's a team that's on board. Like you still have to find your white knights, your champions of change out there,
that's right.
and you have to employ change management processes because people don't like to change, but some of those people that are with you now may like the new culture.
Hmm.
You just have to make sure that you have the right people on your team to help you champion this whole thing. But I wish there was an easy answer for you on that one.
No, I didn't expect one. This is
Yeah.
the work I do to similar work, so I understand. I think with that, I'd like to thank you, Ryan. Uh, I really enjoyed this conversation, and you added such great insight into the whole recruitment and retention process system, and the changes that are happening. With modern pressures on organizations, I think attracting and keeping the right people is increasingly important. And your insights will certainly support our audience with rethinking recruitment and retention. So before we leave, I'd like for you to please tell our listeners how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest place to connect with me socially. I also have a website, corematters.com. And if your listeners would like a copy of my book, they can go to corematters.com/free book. And there's just a small shipping and handling fee, and I'll sign and mail them a copy of my book, Hire Better People Faster.
Signed version. Fantastic. Please support Ryan and his book sales. This is exciting. This has been Yvette Bethel along with Ryan Englin, and we'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us at Evolve, Reinventing Leadership, Building Freedom Cultures.
Thank you for listening to Evolve, Reinventing Leadership, Building Freedom Cultures. Learn more about our proprietary trust, leadership, and culture courses and certifications at the IFB Academy. You can check them out at organizationalsoul.learnworlds.com.